You probably never forget the moment a stranger walks into your life and changes everything with a single sentence. "If you're brave enough, stay." That's all she said, and those words planted a question in my soul that haunts me to this day. Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you believe that sometimes all it takes is one quiet invitation to rewrite your entire life story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the most authentic, emotional stories. My name is Leo, I'm 22, and that summer, I was doing a job I never thought I'd do, delivering KFC chicken around Charlotte, North Carolina. It was part of a summer internship program from my college, but it was really more of a side gig to make a living and keep my mind from feeling so empty. The truth is, I was completely lost. My major didn't interest me at all. My friends felt more and more distant. I was a master at pretending everything was fine, but deep down, I felt like I was floating, waiting for some gravitational force to pull me back to Earth. Charlotte is a peaceful city, nestled beside rolling hills. It's a place with old bookstores, friendly coffee shops, and unique street artists. Mellow jazz tunes drift out from old vinyl record stores. It's the kind of city where nothing really seems to happen, but that very fact brings a sense of comfort. It also rains a lot here, not the scary kind of thunderstorm, but just a persistent, gentle drizzle that makes everything smell of damp pine leaves and asphalt. Sometimes I'd walk past the library on Montford Avenue and wonder what it would feel like to truly belong in a place like this. But most of the time, I just drove, delivering buckets of fried chicken to hungry locals. I lived in a tiny studio apartment above an old shoe repair shop. The ceiling creaked, the paint was peeling, and my roommate was almost never there. So, I had a lot of time to myself and far too much empty space in my own head. And then, on an ordinary Thursday evening, I knocked on a door and everything changed forever. It was a Thursday evening, the kind of weather that makes everything feel a bit surreal. The sun had already set behind the hills, and Charlotte was wrapped in a soft, golden twilight that made even the cracked sidewalks look poetic. I had one last order before I could clock out, a KFC family meal with extra biscuits. The address was somewhere in Montford Hills, a quiet, upscale neighborhood I rarely delivered to. Winding streets, old Victorian houses with soft porch lights, and wind chimes that whispered instead of clanged. I followed the GPS directions, passing rows of tall oak trees, and parked in front of a house that looked like it was pulled from a Southern Living magazine. It wasn't flashy, just timeless. White shutters, ivy creeping up the walls, and a wide front porch with a rocking chair that seemed to hold 1,000 stories. I grabbed the food bag, walked up the path, and knocked twice. When the door opened, I almost forgot why I was there. She stood there, Clara, maybe in her late 40s, with auburn hair falling in soft waves past her shoulders. She wore a dark green cardigan, simple earrings, and seemed to have no makeup on. But something about her exuded a calm, self-possessed air, as if the world around her had to pause for a beat before moving on. Her eyes met mine, serene, curious, and completely unbothered by my obvious awkwardness. I managed to croak out, "Your order, ma'am." She took the bag from my hands, and for a split second, our fingers touched. That's when she said it. Her voice was soft, almost amused. "If you're brave enough, stay." I blinked. Did I hear that right? She didn't laugh or wink. She just looked at me as if she already knew what I would do. My mouth opened, but no words came out. I could feel my face flush, my heart pounding like I'd just sprinted up a hill. I looked at her, then down at the steps, then back at her. I should probably finish my shift, I stammered. She gave a slight nod, as if it didn't surprise her at all. Suit yourself, she said, still holding that smile, that knowing smile. The door closed quietly. I stood there for another moment, my hands still hovering awkwardly at my sides, my mind racing, and then I walked back to my car, fast, as if I needed distance. But even as I drove away, all I could hear in my head was her voice. If you're brave enough, stay. That night, I barely slept. And when I did, she was there in my mind, standing in the quiet glow of that porch light. A week had passed since that delivery, a week of replaying her words on a loop in my head. If you're brave enough, stay. I kept telling myself it was just a strange, flirty moment, something to be forgotten. But the truth was, I couldn't forget her. That afternoon, the sun finally broke through the gray clouds that had blanketed Charlotte for days. The air was crisp, the sidewalks warm. I decided to take a walk through Weaver Park, my favorite quiet spot near campus. I had my earbuds in, my mind drifting, when a familiar figure caught my eye. I froze. It was her, Clara. She was walking slowly along a gravel path, her hands tucked into the pockets of a long, olive-colored coat. The late afternoon sun lit up her hair, making it look like spun copper. She looked exactly as I remembered, composed, graceful, almost out of place in this world. I panicked, looked away, and pretended to fiddle with my phone, but it was too late. She had seen me. She smiled, not the mysterious half-smile from her porch. This one was warmer, more familiar. She approached unhurriedly and stopped in front of me. "You look familiar," she said, her eyes sparkling. I swallowed hard. I delivered your KFC a week ago." Her smile widened. "Ah, yes, the delivery boy who ran away." I laughed awkwardly. "I wasn't sure if you were serious." "I was," she replied. Then after a beat, she added, "Are you busy right now?" I shook my head. "Then walk with me." It wasn't a request. Her voice was soft, but it was a challenge. We started down the path, falling into a comfortable rhythm. She asked about school. I told her about the internship, about my confusion about the future. She listened without interrupting. Then she shared her story. A former literature teacher, recently divorced, no children. She had moved to Charlotte 2 years ago to start over. She loved poetry, listened to jazz vinyls on rainy mornings. I told her I had never met anyone like her. She didn't blush, just said, "You probably haven't." As we reached the edge of the park, the light beginning to fade, she stopped. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small notepad, scribbled a number, and tore it off. She handed it to me. "I don't usually do this," she said, "but something tells me you're worth the risk." Then, with that same calm grace, she turned and walked away. And I stood there, heart pounding, the number in my hand, wondering what the hell had just happened. The piece of paper sat on my nightstand for 3 days. Every night, I'd pick it up, stare at the number, then put it back down as if it might burn me. I rehearsed what I would say, then lost my nerve before I could even dial. What was I afraid of? That she wouldn't answer, or worse, that she would... Finally, on a rainy Tuesday night, I sat in my dimly lit apartment, phone in hand, heart hammering. I took a deep breath, tapped in the number, and hit call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, "Hello?" Her voice was warm, steady, the kind of voice that makes you exhale without realizing you've been holding your breath. "Hi, it's Leo," I said, my voice stumbling slightly. "From the park." "And the KFC." A soft laugh on the other end. "I was starting to think you lost my number." "I almost did." "I'm glad you didn't." We talked for a few minutes. Then she asked, "How about dinner this Friday?" We chose a small Italian place just off Pack Square. Dim lighting, brick walls, checkered tablecloths. I showed up early, palms sweating, second-guessing everything I was wearing. When she walked in, I nearly forgot how to speak. She wore a simple black dress, her hair down in soft waves. She smiled when she saw me, and something in my chest loosened. "You clean up nice," she teased as she sat down. "You look incredible," I blurted out. We both laughed, and the conversation flowed as easily as the wine. The books we loved, the albums we wore out, the dreams that never came true. The regrets, the moments we didn't realize were important until they were gone. Clara told me about a poem that once saved her life. I told her about a short story I wrote in high school that no one had ever read. Time blurred. The plates were cleared. The restaurant emptied around us. Have you ever felt that spark? That moment where you know you have to take a leap of faith? If you have, press the like button to let me know. Outside, the streets were damp from the earlier rain. We stood by the curb, not ready to say goodbye. She looked at me with that same calm, searching gaze. "Would you like to come back to my place?" She paused. "Just to talk, or not, only if you feel ready." She wasn't trying to seduce me. There was no pressure, just an open door, a question. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the answer. Her apartment was on the third floor of an old brick building just outside of downtown Charlotte. No elevator, just a creaky staircase and the faint scent of lavender in the halls. Clara unlocked the door with a quiet click and stepped aside. "Come in," she said softly. The place was nothing like I expected, yet exactly how I'd imagined she would live. The space was warm, lived in, and full of character. Worn hardwood floors, bookshelves overflowing with books, their spines turned every which way. Table lamps casting a golden light instead of harsh overhead bulbs. A few framed black and white photos. A record player sat in the corner, slowly spinning a Billie Holiday album that filled the room with smoky jazz. There was a kind of peaceful chaos to the place. Every corner told a story. "Make yourself comfortable," she said, slipping off her shoes and heading into the kitchen. I stood awkwardly for a second, taking it all in. The flicker of candlelight on the windowsill, the faint scent of chamomile and old paper. She returned a few minutes later with 2 mugs of tea. "Chamomile?" "It helps with nerves." I smiled. "You think I'm nervous?" "I know you are." We sat on a deep velvet couch, side by side, our legs almost but not quite touching. The tea warmed my hands. The jazz wrapped around us like a blanket. For a while, we just talked. She told me about her mother, how she had died suddenly 2 years ago. How Clara never really recovered. How she once started writing a novel but abandoned it halfway through. "I used to think words were everything," she said, "but after a while, even they stopped showing up." I told her about how invisible I felt most days. How it always seemed like I was watching life through glass, close enough to see it, but never really in it. How I'd been going through the motions, hoping someone might notice. She listened completely. The kind of listening that makes you forget to filter your pain. At some point, our conversation slowed. She leaned in, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I felt her hand gently rest on mine. And then, softly, naturally, we kissed. It wasn't rushed or hungry. It was slow, deep, like something was being stitched back together inside both of us. Her touch was careful, intentional, not asking for anything, just giving. Later, as we sat in the quiet, she looked at me, not with desire, but with something more human. More honest. "You made me feel something I thought I'd lost," she whispered. "Hope." I woke to the soft hum of jazz and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, wrapped in a warm blanket, in a kind of quiet that didn't feel empty, but safe. The morning light filtered through linen curtains, painting the room in gold and soft gray. Clara was in the kitchen, barefoot, her robe tied loosely at her waist. She moved slowly, deliberately, like someone who had learned to savor small moments. I sat up, ran a hand through my hair, still unsure if the night before had actually happened, but the warmth lingering in my chest told me it had. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled. "Good morning." "Morning," I said, my voice rough from sleep. She handed me a steaming mug, and we stood there for a while, sipping in silence. There was no rush, no awkwardness, just a kind of unspoken understanding between us. I wanted to ask her what this meant, what came next, but I didn't. Somehow, I knew the moment didn't need labels. When it was time to leave, I put on my jacket slowly, not wanting the quiet to end. Clara walked me to the door. Her eyes met mine. "Call me, Leo," she said gently. I nodded, my heart swelling with an unfamiliar but welcome feeling. "I will," and I meant it. I waited a day before texting her, just something simple. "I had a really great time last night. Hope you're doing okay." No reply. I told myself maybe she was busy, maybe she needed space. 2 days passed, then 4. I sent another message, "Thinking of you." No pressure, just wanted to say hi. Still nothing. I called, straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. The next day I tried again, same thing. The same silence. By the end of the week, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling in my chest, the kind of feeling you don't want to name because naming it makes it real. So on a Saturday afternoon, I went back to her building. It was cloudy, the kind of gray sky that feels like a warning. I climbed the stairs, each one heavier than the last. When I reached the 3rd floor, I stood in front of her door, heart pounding. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, a little louder. Still nothing. I pressed my ear against the door. The apartment sounded hollow, like it had been empty for days. I stood there for a minute, not knowing what to do, before walking down to the management office. An older man with a clipboard and a tired expression looked up as I stepped inside. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm looking for someone, Clara." "The corner unit on the 3rd floor." He flipped through a few papers, squinting. "Oh, Ms. Bennett." "She moved out." I blinked. "What?" "About a week ago, paid through the end of the month." "Left no forwarding address." "You sure, kid?" I'm the one who locked the door behind her. "She's gone." I walked back outside, down the sidewalk, and out into the street. Then I just stopped. Across the street, I could see her window, once lit with warm lamplight and soft jazz, now dark, curtainless, still. She was gone just like that, no goodbye. No message, not even a trace, and something in me felt like it had been quietly erased. The days that followed felt like walking underwater. Everything moved slower, sounds were muted. Even my own thoughts echoed like they didn't belong to me. I kept reaching for my phone, expecting her name to flash across the screen. A message. A call. Anything. But it stayed silent. And so did I. I stopped telling my friends about her. I stopped walking by the building. I avoided the park, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. I wasn't angry. Just confused, wounded in a quiet way, like something beautiful had happened, and I was the only one left to remember it. One night, I opened my journal for the first time in months, not to write poetry or letters I'd never send, just to remember. Every detail. I could recall the sound of her laugh, the way she stirred her tea, the Billie Holiday song playing in the background. I wrote it all down, not to let go, but to hold on, because for me, holding on was the only way to make sense of what she left behind. And she did leave something behind. A week after she disappeared, I found it, tucked inside the pocket of the jacket I wore that night, a small folded note card. Cream-colored, unmarked on the outside. Inside was a quote handwritten in delicate script. Some people come into your life to remind you what your heart still knows how to feel. No signature. No explanation, just that. I stared at it for a long time. And then I slid it into the back of my journal, like pressing a flower between the pages, something fragile. Something worth keeping. Clara didn't belong to me. Maybe she was never meant to stay. But in the short time I knew her, just a few days, she taught me more than most people have in years. Not through advice, not through long speeches or grand declarations. She taught me by being exactly who she was, and by leaving exactly when she did. Because the truth is, some people don't come into your life to stay. They come to wake you up. Clara reminded me that connection isn't always about permanence. It's about impact. Some bonds don't need to last a lifetime to change you forever. Sometimes all it takes is one quiet moment, a cup of tea, a song on vinyl, a sentence whispered at the door. If you're brave enough, stay. I used to think being brave meant holding on, fighting to keep something no matter the cost. But Clara showed me something else. That sometimes courage means letting go of expectations, of needing answers, of wishing someone would come back. I don't believe she disappeared to hurt me. Maybe she needed to move on. Maybe she was afraid, or maybe she was exactly who she said she was, someone starting over, moment by moment. And for that moment, she chose me. And I got to choose her back, even if only for one night, one sunrise. One soft goodbye that was never said. I still think of her sometimes when I hear jazz or see a green scarf or pass by a bookstore with fogged-up windows. I wonder if she ever thinks of me. But I don't need to know, because what matters is this: I remember her, not as someone who left, but as someone who showed me that love, no matter how brief, can still be real. And sometimes that's enough. Have you ever met someone who changed your entire inner world in just a moment? Not someone who stayed forever, not someone you planned for, but someone whose presence cracked something open, made you feel again, trust again, hope again. Maybe it was a stranger. Maybe it was someone you loved but couldn't keep. Maybe, like Clara, they arrived when you weren't ready and left before you knew what they truly meant to you. If you've ever met someone like that, someone who came, changed your world, and then left, press 1 in the comments. You never know who else might need to hear your story tonight. And if this story touched something in you, please like it to help others find it, and subscribe for more stories that remind us that sometimes a great story isn't just meant to be heard, it's meant to be carried with you. Quietly, carefully, and maybe even forever.